Hey, welcome to the Gold Room podcast. We're excited to have Karl from Eye Care here. Please like, subscribe, engage the algorithm, comment, make lots of comments about Josh interrupting everyone because he's going to do it.
I'm gonna.
Welcome. Josh, thanks for letting me co-host again.
Not a problem, Mark. Thank you very much. It's awesome to have you back in the studio. Karl, thanks very much for coming in.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks for inviting me.
Look forward to hearing all about eye care. Mate, first question I have is, usually we start with the life and the times of you, right? So we want to know all about you, where you came from. But before I do that, we're jumping a little bit out of control here. Eye care, where did the name come from?
Yeah, so the Eye Care Group, it's the background is Icarian, so Icarus.
Yep, okay.
So that's
Flew too close to the sun.
Yeah, so that's pretty much what our founder and he was very keen on that side. So for Fabrice Brion, we are the Icarians, so it's still that family feel.
Okay, cool. Because when I first saw it, I thought it's got like a retirement village look to it.
Yeah.
I'm not taking anything away from it.
Josh is looking for a place to live.
I am getting real old. It's horrific.
And to be honest, like the Eye Care name in Australia is also associated with healthcare. So there's healthcare here in Australia. It's called Eye Care. Cool. So when we have conversations, we say, look, we're not people health. We are machine health.
Oh, man, I love it. All right, let's crack on. Life and the times. Hit us with it.
A bit about me. I'm the director for Eye Care Group for the Australasia region. Originally from the UK, as you can probably tell from the accent.
Sure can.
My career path, I've been in engineering and maintenance for almost 25 years now. Started off in the British military.
Cool.
So I'm from a military background. My father was in the army. So the guys that you see
grandfather in the army?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
awesome.
you see the guys that you see on Buckingham Palace with the big bear skins, and
Really?
that was my dad.
Beef eaters, right?
Yeah, not the beef eaters. So these are the guys, the guard. So
Okay,
he was an
gotcha.
Irish guard. So they rotate the guards through at Buckingham Palace.
Have you got any photos of him?
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah, I've got
Awesome.
photos of him with the big bear skin
Cool,
on.
mate. Send them through so we
Yeah.
can chuck them in. It'll be awesome.
Yeah, nice. I joined the military. My brother was also military. So I joined the Royal Air Force, predominantly working on airfields. Tactical airfields as well as airfields in conflict. So I'd take guys and girls into Iraq and Afghanistan, and we would either set up tactical assets or established airfields. So my last gig was decommissioning of Camp Bastion's airfield in Afghanistan.
Wow. Far out, mate.
Yeah.
That sounds like quite an exciting bloody role
Yeah.
before getting into what you're currently doing now.
Yeah, so I came out of the military, jumped across into healthcare, into oncology. It's quite transferable for radar systems and radiation to go into medical imaging, and then jumped across into Australia in 2020,
Wow.
July 2020. So
a new recruit, not as new as Mark,
Yeah.
a new recruit nonetheless.
He's fresh off the plane. I'm fresh off the sub.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I came over here as an engineering manager in a private oncology practice. Started out as the manager of Queensland,
Okay.
and then a year later became the manager of Australia.
Wow.
And jumped in with Eye Care a year ago. Unlike previously, we're industry agnostic, so we support every industry, which is something that just excites me.
So that's pretty much your career path that's led you to where you are today.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
So what's your day-to-day as the managing director for the Australasia portion of Eye Care look like?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I look after all facets of the business for this region. So that's everything from the BD. So we look at business development opportunities, operations, installation, and then the aftercare, the customer care, which for me is the real focus. Is establishing customers is one thing, keeping customers is another thing.
That's right.
So growth and sustainability.
Beautiful. What sets Eye Care's preventative maintenance apart from other preventative maintenance operators like SRG or ALS?
So our focus is on the predictive element. So we're a predictive maintenance supplier. We're solution based. There's companies out there that do what we would call the old way of doing things, still efficient, somewhat, on me. And so companies like your ALS, your SRG, that was Eye Care many years ago. We still have that as a deliverable, but we have pivoted with innovation. Basically, in the IoT of Internet of Things for Industry 4.0 and 5.0, we see this next wave of optimization of vibration products and taking this analog way of doing things and digitizing it. So more data.
So just go into what was the old way? Was that the blokes on the ground? That was vehicles out to site. That's clipboards and
exactly.
What else?
Yeah, exactly that. So the tried and tested way for many decades has been guys and girls going to customer sites. They'd take their vibration equipment. They would,
stethoscope.
Yeah, sort of. They'd attach their equipment onto accelerometers. On the rotating equipment, they would take readings, and it's basically a route. That's what they would take every time, but they would do it sometimes 3, 4, 5 times a year. So you're getting a snapshot of the health, but it's limited. It's only for what that asset was doing at that time, and then a report would be sent to a customer in the days or weeks after the attendance.
Yep.
So the sensors, I'm assuming you have sensors that are permanently mounted. So how does that work, and how does that help with managing or doing this predictive maintenance that iCare does?
Yeah, so we manufacture the sensors ourselves. So they're triaxial, so they're in vertical, horizontal, and axial, and they're also temperature. So they are permanently mounted on the assets, and then they're polling every day. So moving away from doing it every 6, 10, 12 weeks, we're now taking measurements every day.
Multiple times per day?
Multiple times per day. So
awesome.
the sensors, you can take them down as far as every 15 minutes if you wanted to. If you're getting into that sort of realm, we're now talking, not just a couple of 100x the data you had, we're going into the thousands of previous data snapshots. Once they're on the equipment, we provide, as I say, we're a solutions provider. So we're not just selling a hardware. We developed a software to complement that, and then we've got a remote analytics team in the background. So,
where are they based?
So they're based globally. Okay. Everybody that's in that team is from a reliability and a vibration trained background, so they can actually carry out their work wherever they like globally,
awesome.
Which I think's fantastic for them.
So having done a little bit of accelerometer evaluations on pumps and diesel equipment and all that, so I'm going to nerd out a lot on you.
Awesome.
Just prevent you there. By the way, I just want to let you know, try means 3.
We're not doing this again for another episode. Thanks, Marky. Thanks,
You're
mate.
welcome. One of the things I found interesting, you're saying that you can adjust the time frame whether you're doing it daily, all the way down to 15 minutes. So you're talking predictive maintenance, right? So normally with our mean time between failures, the MTBF, you would say, hey, every 1,000 hours or 10,000 hours, we're going to swap this pump out. What you're saying from your predictive maintenance is that I could turn around and say, hey, we do 1,000 hours and we're going to take a daily measurement. And then you can go at 1,000 hours and going, hey, I'm not seeing any vibration. We continue with daily, or the vibration is becoming out of whack and maybe need to go to every half day. And then you can figure out when is the best time to swap this pump out and coordinating that with other maintenance evolution. So instead of taking down a piece of equipment to swap one pump out, I can wait and do it with a whole group of other pumps. Is that kind of what you're describing?
Yeah.
Also greasing schedules as well. So you'd be able to really dial in a greasing schedule rather than whatever it is. If it's once a week or if it's a couple of times a day, you'd be able to dial that in. So obviously saving costs and grease as well.
Yeah, exactly that. So there's probably a couple of points in there. When you're looking at time-based or runtime-based, so on hours or on just physical duration, like OEMs would say, every 3 months or every 1,000 hours, you carry this out. That's very low risk. What we're looking at is essentially supporting customers to push that asset and make it cost optimized as well. So then you're taking measurements every day. You're getting a real snapshot of how the asset is looking from day to day. And when the touch point on, would we do this work at this time? Yeah, for particularly in mining industries, when they're going into a turnaround or a shut, as they call it, it's essentially knowing which assets they need to focus on first.
Yep.
Because we've got the performance to failure curve. So we assign a criticality, everything from dark green, amber to red. Red being intervention required, you're going to run to failure. If you get into a shut, you can start to look at, rather than just attacking that asset for this time, what else do I need to do at the same time? And will this asset make it to the next shut? You'll only know that if you've got the data. And to get the data, you need more and more data.
If you're getting monthly or quarterly bloke out on site or blokeette to come out and monitor your equipment, you're not going to really get that, are you?
You get a snapshot there.
A small snapshot.
Yeah, but you're essentially rolling the dice. And we know Sod's law says that, they get a snapshot of it on a Friday, and 2 weeks later, something could have happened or it has degraded. But if you want another look at it, they have to come back, which, as to your point, it's guys' guilds in the cars, flights, coming back. That's costly. It's also, when we look at decarb in mining, that contributes to a lot to that as well. So when you've got a product on the system, you can do stuff remotely. I'd like to up the polling remotely. You want more data? We can give you more data.
The other thing that's also fascinating is that you may not send the same bloke or blokeette out each time. So the person who monitors that equipment, they may be using a different sensor or something like that. And so you may end up actually having, now everything's calibrated to a standard, but you would have little differences with it, where if it's an installed sensor, even if the sensor fails, you have an indication of a problem that needs to be repaired immediately, as opposed to it's an error with how the data was taken or the equipment that goes out to the site. So you may, that's another cost-effective benefit, is that that you don't have to, you're getting valid data at all times, and if the data is not coming back valid, you have a problem to repair. Yeah,
definitely. So to that point, when you want standardization, you want to reduce or remove the variables. When you put a product on an asset, it's there. It's not moving. We're not measuring at different positions. And the other point that you made is really valid, is if the sensor was to fail, there's also an alert built into the system there as well. So we let customers know, hey, if somebody has damaged a sensor, for instance, we get an alert. We send the report to the customer.
Well, when a site purchases this system, are there backup sensors out on site so they can do it on-site change out themselves?
Yeah. So awesome. the biggest thing for us is, as I said, is the aftercare, support the customer. What you don't want to do is get into an environment where we can give you a fantastic product and we've got people, but if something goes wrong, for instance, if they swap out the asset and they need something else, or a sensor does get damaged, the most important things, especially in regional remote, is to leave product there. So our sensors are actually like a child's toy with the tab. You pull the tab and it'll start to look for the gateway. Every sensor's QR coded, and it's essentially, you just take the sensor off, you pop the collar, put a new one on, give us a copy of the QR code of the sensor you put on, and we'll re-baseline that sensor to that asset.
Awesome, that's fantastic. Mate, mine sites and the mining industry in general is a tough environment. How does your product stand up out there in those harsh conditions?
Yeah, so everything we've got is tried and tested and certified. So our product is across every industry. So we're in marine and offshore, notoriously hard as well. Mining is the same. So having things IP rated for dust and water and things like that. iCare's also got ATEX certified.
What is that?
So when you're in explosive areas, so like oil and gas, you can't have the same product that sits in like a pharmaceutical environment. It has to be certified to another tier of safety.
Yep, beautiful.
What about radiation testing? Does it work in a radiation environment, or are you in that space? Or?
Radiation is notoriously a difficult one.
Good question, Marky.
Yeah, I'd probably be intrigued to throw it to our project team to see what we do in a customer base of anything coming from a radiation background. I know, like components, it's not a favourable environment. I would always say it depends on what the asset is and what environment it's sitting at, because we, as part of our standardised approaches, we carry out all the installations, we do everything. We do an asset assessment for the customer. So I would always say, come to us, explain what you want to do. We're a solutions company. If we can do it, we will do it.
Yeah, that's super fascinating. Yeah. So what equipment have you seen like the biggest impact or improvement or capabilities with your solution?
It varies. So the question we always go in with any customer, because essentially all of the assets are just being used but in different ways. So we often say to them, like, what does a day or an hour of unplanned downtime cost you as a business?
So many different variables.
Yeah. So again, it's sometimes businesses, particularly in mining is for me is a fundamental. The assets themselves are high capex, and the operations is also incredibly value. So it's a win-win for them with regards to predictive maintenance. They protect the asset, they protect the operations. In other industries where it's low chuck away items, food and beverage is one of our biggest global industry verticals. There we're monitoring pumps and motors that are only a few $1,000s. They're not interested in protecting the asset, but that asset is a single point of failure for their operations. Yep. So then it becomes, again, a high criticality asset for them. When we look at what's the return on investment, essentially it depends on what they're doing with regards to production or manufacturing or whatever that is that they're doing as a throughput.
So kind of a follow-up with that, you've described a lot of like continuous running equipment. Do you use sensors for, say, equipment that's run periodically? I think about like emergency generators, right? So does your equipment work with that where you can have it have a trigger so that when the generator turns on, it'll start monitoring, it'll monitoring the hour or two, and then it'll shut off?
Yep. So we do wired and wireless.
Do you have that as a question?
No.
That is fucking good question, Marky.
That's why you brought me on.
Yeah,
smart man.
Yes, we do. So with the wired system, you can program it into like a PLC. So for instance, when something's turned on, it can send a signal to one of our modules to take a reading, takes the reading, and then goes back to sleep. With wireless sensors, accelerometers, are suitable for probably 80+% of the market. We can actually set the planning and scheduling of when the sensor polls. So to your comment is we've got certain customers that may say, hey, we run, but that asset will only run between 8 and 12 a.m. every day.
Awesome.
That's it.
Far out.
Or we only run it every 3 hours, but we can't tell you which 3 hours. We can set different scheduling on the sensor to pick up some point in that day.
Yeah, and give you the background on that question is that most of the monitoring I did was on diesel-driven equipment.
That's diesel. Diesel.
At the power plant I worked at.
Yeah, cool.
And like what actually held up the shutdown was making sure that you had all the accelerometer readings, even though it only takes like 20 minutes to do it. But it seems like, because I don't do it all the time, right? Because I'm an operator. And that was the thing that I have to go back and do that thing sometimes like 4 or 5 times because of like script the machine and recording it. Like you're, yelling and cursing and, calling something like, hey, how do I do this? Like every single time. Yeah. So like that, and from a standpoint of, you want to minimize the time that equipment is operating because it is your emergency equipment, right? You want to only operate it as minimally as possible because you don't want to add an unnecessary wear and tear to it.
How beneficial would these sensors be to your industry?
Oh, it was super, super helpful. I look at, so the submarines I served on, we actually had a dedicated person that one of their jobs, whenever we would do, they would have to go around monthly. And there was one person they would dedicate because they want to make sure they knew how to use the equipment. Yep. And it was the same person doing it to get the standardized. Yep. And they would go around to every pump on the submarine. On the aircraft carrier, it was like 4 or 5 that did that. But they went around to every single pump. There's like hundreds of pumps on a submarine and thousands on an aircraft carrier.
Yeah, exactly.
Are you guys in any naval ships or submarines?
Yeah, so we do marine and offshore, so as an industry. And the really interesting thing about marine and offshore is obviously with everything, you want to get the data out. Yep. So even as recently, we've just completed testing with things like Starlink.
Oh, awesome.
So now,
how's it working if they're underway? If they're underwater?
Yeah, so
you're not getting it.
Yeah, you're not getting for a sub. You're not going to get the
only
data
when
out.
it comes. So they'll just be monitoring it on the sub, and then once they go back to dry dock, that's when.
When you pull in, you would probably hand deliver that data.
Okay.
Just because it's not, you don't want to put over the radio waves.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's security.
Well, there is a security aspect to it. Right. There's also the bandwidth aspect. You don't want to put a bunch of data over your radio system, just because you have so much data transfer going all over. And there's actually an entire group of people in the Navy that's called performance monitoring teams that take all that data and evaluate it. It's a combination of active duty military, at least in the U.S. Navy, and civilians that monitor all that. So this is like, again, I'm going to nerd out like crazy because it's all exciting stuff to me.
And it is that. So with vibration, there's 2 ways that you see it. So we take the full spectrum. So that is big data sets.
Yeah.
So we actually, when we've got our own hardware, the sensors, we've developed our own gateways as well, because you can't buy an off-the-shelf gateway to transfer all that data to the cloud for our reliability and vibration analysts to review. Small off-the-shelf gateways just can't handle the big packets of data. So we just manufactured our own.
Wow.
And then, as you say, you need the whole spectrum to start looking at failure modes and then working out, not there's a problem with the asset, it's telling you what the problem is.
Yep.
So it's a bearing problem, it's on the drive end. And then you can really start getting into the analytics. And as you say, our team love that side and they can geek out, and customers get excited because they can see the depth of the support that's coming.
The other thing that's super neat about this is that, let's say you have a 50 kilowatt pump that's on an oil and gas rig, and that same 50 kilowatt pump is used in mining, and another one's on a ship, and another one's in an oil and gas industry.
True.
You have so much data
Yep.
that you can take from each of those different things, and you could say, hey, we're seeing failure modes occurring because of the environment over here, but it's not existing in these others. Like, again,
How do we change an
Yeah.
environment to suit to get a longer lasting product?
Yeah, and that's it. So the variables of the environment or the processing,
The applications are,
Windows.
that's crazy.
Let the man talk.
Sorry.
No, I'm just saying that you buy the same assets, as you said, you can buy the same asset and put it in completely different environments. Once you start getting the data sets, you're going from predictive to prescriptive. Meaning predictive, we monitor it. Prescriptive, what do we do when we see a problem? And that asset in particular, they may have a different approach depending on the environment it's in or what it's being used for. But you won't get any of that until you start on that innovation highway.
That's where it's like super interesting when you're talking about the beverage industry, saying $1,000 pump, they don't care about the pump, they care about the line being running.
Yep.
And so they may see some failure where, in, say a mining industry, they're using a $10,000 pump. So they want to keep that pump as long as possible and maintain
10,000?
or whatever, 100,000, whatever, whatever the value is that is critical. I'm made up numbers, right? But the thing is that when they get to a scheduled outage, like, hey, we know this pump, probably has another 6 months of life, but I need it to last a year. We're swapping that pump out now.
Yep.
And so that's that predictive into prescriptive that you're talking about.
Yep.
It's super, super interesting.
Yeah, even to the point where we get back to more of the design side of things. So food and beverage, manufacturing, they often design for a certain processing window. And we know over time companies grow and they don't go back to the design phase. So at that point, their operations currently are not the same as what they thought it was going to be when they designed their asset management system and what they were using. So, the size of pumps, size of motors, the need is there to change, but without the data, you would never see it. And if your mean time between failures is obviously quite short and it's happening a lot, you can then start to look at, is it being caused by the processing? Do we need to change this pump for something larger? And for us, it doesn't matter what asset they put in, we can still monitor it for them.
How easily does your system integrate with a mining client's current platform that they're using? For example, like a Cytec system.
Yep. So there's the thing that we promote is it's turnkey. And if we say turnkey, everything we do, there's a single sign-on dashboard. So everybody that wants access to a dashboard to see the asset health of their portfolio, we absolutely can give it to them. We don't penalize them with regards to, hey, like some of your big software companies, it's their data, they have a right to see it.
Yep.
We go that one step further. The reports, we acknowledge that change management in a labour force is incredibly hard to adopt. So they may be using a CMMS program, so a maintenance software that they use for everything that they're doing in the preventative side. We can actually API integrate into that as well.
Awesome.
So the reports that our remote team are producing can then be pushed into that CMMS program, and they'll see it as just a new work order to be aware of.
So if fitters were on site and they were, a new pump's gone in and you can see the pump run hours, you'd be able to have something alongside it saying estimated greasing schedules or whatever schedules that may be prevalent when trying to keep this these products up and running.
Yeah, so if they're logging on to their CMMS program, they're likely having like a scheduled service, or they've got faults, breakdowns, whatever they've got in there as work orders. Our work orders will come in as well to complement. with a criticality assessment. And then when they action that work order, we provide a recommendation. So to your point earlier about lubrication, we can see lubrication as a problem. It's one of the key problems in every industry.
Over-lubrication or under-lubrication?
Both.
Yep.
Both. So as probably know, it's a case of it's not bigger the blob, better the job. In lubricant. You can do as much damage as under-lubricating. So lubrication, optimizing your lubrication. So as a deliverable from iCare as well, we don't just do the products, we will provide cross-deliverables. So reliability-centered lubrication is something that we offer to customers. So we will actually come in and look at a lubrication plan for that customer alone. What are they doing? How are they doing it? How often are they doing it? There's trials and proof of concept and value where you can put lubricants, automated lubricants onto the equipment and use the vibration data to immediately lubricate the asset as well. So the human hand doesn't touch that either.
Shoot, there'd be some bloody... Are you working with any companies to integrate that at the moment?
We are, yeah.
So lubrication companies?
Yes.
Alum Lube?
No.
Are you allowed to name any of them?
Not right now.
Okay. What about name a couple of companies that you're currently working with, a couple of mining companies that you're currently working with that have put your products into play?
Yep. So I mean, as I say, not just mining. So with regards to our customer base, so we're installing in the goldfields next month. I personally, in my position, I don't tend to name drop different companies. But
what do you reckon Jason would? If we had Jason on the show, he'd be name dropping.
Jason Tocco would definitely tell you who he's talking to.
He's a good bloke.
So who would Jason say?
Yeah. That's exactly it.
If I were Jason, I would be telling you that we're installing at multiple mine companies in the goldfields. But yeah, again, we've got established customer base. So as I say, I only jumped into this role 12 months ago. Right. And we've had more customers now in the last 12 months than we'd had in the previous 3 or 4 years.
Awesome.
So what kind of benefits are your customers seeing, right? Obviously, you're not going to tell us because you're being very political with that. Sorry. So like, what are you seeing as far as like downtime, the life of their assets, and then safety improvements?
Yeah. So with regards to, it's hard to quantify when we say, hey, what have you got? Unless they're going to run case studies. But we know the value is there. So they're intervening at a time of their choosing. That's why we kind of say it's a data-driven decision. Their strategy may still be run to failure, but they're going to optimize. Are they going to procure the asset or the parts in a better timeline, or are they going to stock stuff on a shelf like they previously did, wrap up cash? When we look at supporting companies, I often look at how are they scaling our product, because that's a key indicator to me that success internally is being achieved. Yep. And we're seeing that across all of our customer base now.
You just really brought something crazy after the story you had told about the filters and going to the UK to pick them up, is that, in the 6 to 7 week lead time they're talking about, but based on what you're talking about with the predictiveness, you could work that 6 to 7 lead time into it going, hey, we see this pump is going to fail. Now we know that there's a lead time. I can order my parts in preparation. So literally the parts come in. I'm not storing it for very long. Equipment fails and it's already there on site.
Freeing up cash flow.
Yes. That is
correct.
Genius.
So
I love it.
When we look at value add of a system, the value add is unplanned downtime. In the back of that, procurement teams get excited because, especially with rotating equipment, some companies will centrally store and they'll move their spares to wherever's needed based on reactive breakdown. When you go that one step further and you start using data and making data-driven decisions, you either are still centrally storing, but you're moving stuff proactively because you're starting to leverage the power of the data in the dashboard, or you're not storing at all and you're looking at your procurement timelines with purchase. And if you know the lead time is short, then you will just order when needed.
Well, it's just from a logistics perspective, right? Now you no longer have to have that giant warehouse filled with tons and tons of spare parts when you can just have a facility the size of this room to store the parts you need that, are going to fail, in the next week or whatever.
Yeah. So, and again, it's with Predictive, we've got case studies where we're going months in advance. We're showing, hey, we can tell you the failure's coming. We can track it with you. We'll support you. The one thing I will say with procurement and anything with logistics, the hub and spoke model of Australia is extremely difficult, especially if you're bringing stuff from overseas. As you mentioned, we're going to the UK. So we'd always say err on the side of caution, But again, if you don't have the data, you're just guessing at that point. So you'll optimize that system over time, and this is where companies are starting to reduce their inventory holding as the confidence rate in predictive and prescriptive maintenance increases.
Yeah, that's bloody fantastic. I know a few stories of people that have, or mining companies that have waited. They've been told 4 to 5 weeks for a product to come in. So there are huge issues, and it might take 4 to 5 months for products to come in.
Well, WA does stand for waiting a while.
It does. So yeah, certainly. Look, you've got to find that medium between holding stock and relying on or having a suitable company that you rely on for procurement.
Yeah, and I want to be very, very clear. We support that predictive element, prescriptive of the assets, the value add that customers have. That's not something that we're pushing. It's just something we're receiving communication back from.
Yep. Karl, share with us a real-world example of where your product has gone above and beyond, and a client's come back and said, we didn't expect this, but this is fantastic.
Yeah, so there's, again, when we look at failure mode breakout, because there's 50, 60 plus failure modes that you can high confidence rate, 95% plus of seeing in vibration. We've had a customer, even recently in petrochemical, where we picked up on a coupling issue on an extruder, and they've gone in and carried out the work because they wanted to intervene. They've carried out the work at a time of their choosing, and that's the key. It's knowing that you pick the time to intervene, so there's no loss of production. And then the feedback from them was, look, being supported, seeing the work orders, us then uploading our own results back to you, knowing that you will, as an aftercare, you'll come and look at the results thereafter. Because as we know, sometimes if you replace a component, you could induce another problem. Yep. But again, you won't know that until you start seeing the data post-works. So yeah, we've had a good feedback from that as recently as last month.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, this is super exciting. So you talked about the auto-lubrication and maintaining it so you don't get, if your human hands are going to over-lubricate or not lubricate enough. What are some of the other ways you're seeing this change the maintenance of equipment?
Yeah, I mean, the innovation of things is going to be, I often say, technology will never be as slow as it is today.
You're dead right.
I look back at when I started my career, if people were telling me, hey, you're going to be on a flight and you can book your hire car from the flight and then you can do this and you can do that, you'd say that's so far away, but it comes so quickly. The stuff that we're seeing, especially in the AI side of things, machine learning, in the next 1 to 2, even 3 years, that is going to be blowing people's minds.
I think so.
Like, we're already seeing it outside the professional and personal capacity of people using AI and your apps like ChatGPT and others for writing presentations and everything else.
A lot of people are still scared to use it. Did you know that? A lot of people don't want to use AI or embrace it.
I have fun arguing with it.
I can only imagine.
Definitely.
Who's the smartest?
I win.
and you can just delete it. Yeah. But there's actually a really interesting one. I was at a conference last week and they were just talking about AI and it was specifically around podcasts.
Yep.
So absorbing information. So instead of having the long read of a document, 72 pages, you can actually use AI to transcript that into a podcast, and it'll have 2 AI generated presenters talking back and forth about the content.
We're not even needed
exactly
anymore.
Yeah. So when we talk disruptive, it isn't just in some industries, it can be any industry. But I often say it's there to support, not to replace.
Yep, definitely. I 100% agree. Karl, last question. What's next? What does the next 12 to 18 months for iCare look like?
Oh, that's a great question. It's extremely busy now, and it's just going to get busier. So we manufacture everything, as I touched on earlier. So we're now at the point where we're producing 2,000 sensors per day.
Awesome.
So we're talking huge numbers. Why are we doing it? Because the growth in the market is there. As I touched on earlier as well, with regards to the guys and girls going around, we've got data sets from 400,000 plus assets.
Wow.
And as you are moving from the in-person to a digital, every one of their measurement points is going to need a sensor to go on. So now we're talking about scalability on a huge scale, which means for us to partner with either local, national, or international global companies, they're going to want to partner with somebody that can scale and install the product and not be waiting, as you said, 4 or 5 months for something to be delivered. That's too long.
That's way too long. That's ridiculous.
Yeah. So we're at that point now where we want to be leading from the front, not just because we have the best in market product, best in market people, but we can actually scale with the company regardless of the size.
Beautiful. Well, mate, look, thank you very much for coming and spending the time with us. I've learnt a heap. Mark, you probably already knew it.
We're now going to be best friends.
I'm so excited. This was like nerd out heaven for me.
Yeah,
I love it.
I mean, and again, outside of this, I'm always happy to give my time. That when we talk about my role, I do a lot of educate the industry. So that's not, and I don't say that with any condescending. It's what you don't know, you don't know.
For sure, and you've always got to learn.
Yeah, exactly. Every day is a school day. So I spend a lot of times with different levels and different businesses, technical, middle management, C-level. Again, everybody sees it with a different lens as well, particularly from a health and safety aspect. They see our product and what it can do and how it can support a business in a completely different way to somebody in management that looks purely at ROI and the commercial value of it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I can see electrical superintendents, mechanical superintendents, mechanical managers looking at this and saying, I think we can save money and save resources and save people's time out in the field
and also save the planet. That is one of our values.
Sustainability.
Sustainability. Reduce that CO2 decarb thing as well. So again, it all plays a part, albeit small for some companies, but leveraging companies like iCare Group with regards to everything, every value add that we've talked about today. When you look at it all together, then that's what I'm most proud of with the team.
Awesome, mate. I think you've got big things ahead of you, that's for sure. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Marky, thanks very much for coming and doing another one with us. I think we've got you back in another couple of episodes' time.
Yeah.
Thanks very much for your help, mate.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for letting me nerd out.
Beautiful.
No problem.
Well, everyone, thanks very much for tuning in to another episode of The Gold Room. As Mark said, don't forget to subscribe. Help us with those YouTube analytics. Like, share it around. Do us all a favour. Thanks.